Well, you got to think about this. Where do you want to be on the change grid to make the absolute best purchasing decision you can?
Right in the middle.
Yeah.
You're right in the middle. Now, of course, you're there to do something, so slightly out grid because you're there to accomplish something. And so if you think about this is that intention rings. This is where you go shopping and looking around, you start noticing things. And sooner or later, you get engaged in some more specific, detailed discussions to actually make the purchase happen. Now you might be out here, but you can still be in the green circle and actually complete the purchase of the car. Well, this is a driven, amiable driver. And so they're going to be very encouraging. If this is the sales rep, there's going to be very encouraging, very supportive. They want you to make the right decision, but they want you to make the decision. Where if you get too far out grid, go further out grid now, this sales representative is on the edge of engagement and execution. They're closing the deal and they're closing persistently, still with a little bit of a smile on their face. Right here, they're a balanced driver, so they can still talk the numbers, build that case. They can be enthusiastic, but make no mistake, they want the deal. And then take it even further out grid, 10-10. Can you imagine what that's like to be that sales representative? Well, if these sales representatives, as we've just described them, are fluent in things related to attention management, they would know that you've come into the discussion right here, maybe early on, you're there looking around, seeing what's out there, having some fun, getting some basic information. They see you here. Are they going to now apply outgrid maneuvers to pull you further outgrid, or are they going to go, no, it's easier to sell you if we move you upgrid? And so if they move you up grid, now you're starting to feel as though your resources are becoming more limited, or they'll tell you there's some sale going on. So whatever it happens to be. So, we can obviously, we've spent a great deal of time teaching this as a sales methodology, but we also did a companion program called Caveat Venditor. And that's would translated to let the seller beware. And we would teach consumers to recognize all of the manipulative ploys that a sales representative, obviously not a master stream trained one, we use a totally different approach, but the traditional sales methodologies, tie down closes, trial closes, all those sorts of things, we teach them to recognize them, and we also gave them a countermeasure to do that. So, like, for example, if you as a consumer were to say, does this refrigerator come in stainless steel? And the sales representative, if they're too far upgrade, might say something to you like, well, if I can get it for you in stainless steel, do we have a deal? So they're trying to make that the point. And in reality, it was just a point. And so the countermeasure is to say, well, I can certainly tell you that if you can't give it to me in stainless steel, there's no reason for us to continue talking about this. And so it's a very interesting little, game the world of negotiations tends to play. But you as the consumer want to make sure you always stay inside of that green circle. Because if they move you out, and usually it's out and up, then now you start to wonder, wait, is this individual who's selling to me my ally or my adversary? Are they trying to help me and get rewarded in the process, or are they just trying to get rewarded and I'm just, the next victim that's walked through the door? And so, that's why we say good sales representatives will be right out here as a driven, amiable driver. So they're there to take care of you, but they're there to accomplish a job, and they, don't mind encouraging you a little bit. Yeah.
It's interesting. We watch that TV show House Hunters on HGTV.
Oh, yeah.
And it's interesting comparing the real estate agents with other ones. Some of them just need to be horsewhipped.
Yeah, it's just true. And, you can look into most of those kind of non-relationship oriented transactional sales. So I could say this is becoming a sales training program, but the two kinds of sales that occur are transactional and transformational. In a transactional sale, the thought is that you want an object, you have money. You go to a place who has that object, they give you the object, you give them money, and you never see each other again. It's highly transactional. Well, in a transactional kind of a setting, if the individual wants the deal, there's all kinds of things they can do to manipulate you and to escalate your level of tension because they don't care. They're never going to see you again. Or, if you ever come back into that store, you might be talking to a different salesperson. So you got that. On the other hand, transformational selling is when you go, no, the relationship is really the most important thing because this particular product or service that the person wants is something they'll use long-term or they'll be a repeat buyer of it. So I'm going to see them again and they're going to continue to pay me. I want to nurture that relationship. A very different thing. Relationship-oriented selling obviously has to be less aggressive, less directive, and a little bit more kind of more something we're doing in cooperation with someone else. They're your knowledgeable advisor. That's the kind of thing. Can you guys feel the difference between those two types of selling and
But I'm wondering about the agent who, when a couple looking at a house and behind the house is a highway, and they can barely talk on the back patio, and the couple say, "Oh boy, we couldn't live with this type of noise," and the agent responds, "Oh, you'd be surprised how quickly you get used to it. You don't even notice it's there."
Right. And we would say that the consumer needs to recognize at that moment that the real estate agent is more concerned with the dollars that go into their pocket than in the ones that stay in yours.
But they're so useful. Right after she says something silly like that, she says something so helpful like, "And this is your dining room."
Yeah.
You'll notice?
Yeah. Here's a bathroom. Yeah.
You'll notice you can eat here if you put a chair.
Statements of the obvious. No, you're obviously dealing with an amateur. And
They're
just know
all
this,
like
there is a
So-
positive aspect to it though, because you have to believe that if they are that lousy at showing a house, I would only hope they're going to be equally lousy when it comes to negotiation. They're more likely to do what you tell them to do because they're desperate for the dollars. Where if they were a little more supportive of you, you want to reward that. So I'll give you an example. When we bought our house here in Sun City West, one of the things that we said to the realtor early on is that we have a few requirements. And as long as they adhere to these requirements, we're good to go. Requirement number one is that from no direction whatsoever do I want to see a wire on a post. My whole life, every place I've ever lived, we had visible utility lines. And I just thought, I don't want to see utility lines. Well, that eliminates Sun City itself, and it eliminates a great deal of Sun City West and Portobello, because you can see those big transmission lines on the other side of the 303. And I said, and then Linda wants to make sure she can see green, and I want to see mountains. So you show us a place that's got, buried lines and a mountain view and some green grass, and we're good to go.
You narrowed it down quite well, though.
Well, because we knew that was what was important to us. And so that's why we just said, is this realtor going to be willing to work with us when we've told them those are our big requirements? Because we were going like 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, who really cares? And, there were a lot of things that were not as important to us, but I think we lucked out. We found a great house on a great location. So, but probably the greatest thing is that we had a really good realtor who is fun to work with, and we're still friends with them now 7 years post sale.
Yeah, but really think about it, T. When you narrowed it down that clearly, that really did narrow how much wasted time she was going to have with you.
That's my thought too.
As how much you had. So you really did a good job of making it a win-win for both of you.
Well, that was my intention, but that's the kind of spirit that this location and the ChangeGrid has. that we need to be able to work together on doing something. So yeah, sales is a driver task, but what's in a relationship oriented sale? I got to know who's more relationship oriented. It's that amiable energy. I mean, expressives will invite you to a party and they'll look like they're a whole lot of fun, but you want some, real substance. You want to know that there's a heart connection, so they really get, what you really are looking for.
Right.
Oh, but anyway, I think it's an interesting thing to look at. I mean, I get it. I put this grid thing together, but I think that from all the places that have contributed elements to the change grid, you really do develop these interesting little insights about how people operate, how they could better operate, why good ones are so good, why bad ones are so bad. You really do kind of go, everybody is someplace on this change grid when it comes to each of the things they're doing throughout a day. So where are they, and is that serving them well? And if not, where would serve them better? And then, of course, how do we move them there? So anyway, you can tell I'm a fan.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
Oh, good. Okay, well, hey, Brian, hey, T, hey, Edie, welcome. Let me go ahead and label the call, although I might take all that preliminary stuff and just include it in the recording. But nevertheless, hey everybody, it's T Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Circle of Brilliance coaching session number 21. Today, we really need to finish up those 2 sets of change grid maneuvers we didn't touch upon last time around. So last time around, if you remember, we talked about downgrid maneuvers being in the domain of the trainer kind of role someone might serve. The trainer hat they might put on, or the actual trainer role if we're talking about a situation where there's need for someone to actually step into formal, trainer, classroom trainer, one-on-one trainer kind of mode. Anyway, that's the domain for where the downgrid maneuvers are found. And if you think about what really is training, normalizing, simplifying, adding resources, restoring resources, this is really part and parcel to what training is really all about. So we got that. Anytime we do any of these things, the level of productive tension is going to go down. Now, what's most important to keep in mind about the downgrid maneuvers, or any of the maneuvers for that matter, is that before you deploy them, you have to be able to answer 2 questions. Can any of you tell me what one or both of those questions might be? Before you use change grid maneuvers, there's 2 things you need to answer. What are those 2 things? 2 things you got to know before you use any of the change grid maneuvers. Ooh, okay, fine. So this is new info. You got to know where they're at, and you have to know where you're trying to move them to. So if I don't know where they're at, you say that if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. But everyone is starting from some place. So where are you at, and where do you want to go? That tells us the road that we're trying to manage. And so, by the way, we take that quite literally. So let's say that you said, well, right now, as far as X is concerned, I'm a 7-7. Ever so slightly outgrid, so an amiable driver, just barely stepping yourself out off of that balance point. All right, well, let's say that for you to finish the task that you need to finish, I need you to be at let's say a 10 for ability and an 8 for challenge. 10 and 8 right there. That's basically moving you from being an amiable driver over here to where you'd be more of an analytical kind of a driver. So maybe what I'm saying is the situations that you're trying to figure something out, you're trying to get something done. Well, to move you, I would need to either move you, you guys tell me which is more efficient, move you downgrid by a bunch and then upgrid by 1, or do I want to move you upgrade and then bring you down? Do I want to just wiggle my way over there? How do I really, what's my course? What's my route? The truth is they're all equal in duration. All the actual distance we moved is identical because it's a grid. So, and we can't cross over. We got to stay on lines. So it's the same amount, but what's going to be the more elegant way to get things done. And so that's where we're looking at this. Yeah. Thoughts about that?
I'm sorry, I was kind of talking to myself. So you want to analyze it, you want to be precise about what you need to do and then do it.
Right. This is what we're trying to do, because here's what ends up happening if we don't really plot the course and then manage the tension to get you over there. Well, we could end up creating a situation where the tension gets too high too fast, and now I got to bring you all the way down to get you where I want you to go. Or maybe I make it from the beginning feel like it's going to be so easy, blah, 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 yeah. And then suddenly I got to tell you, well, no, the reality is there's more to it. So if I don't stay on kind of a nice, efficient course, then I'm just creating my own workload. You know, I'm either, if I'm doing this for myself, by the way, I'm blowing myself out of the green, and there's always a price to be paid, energetically, as far as your thoughts are concerned, all that sort of thing. So we want to do our best to stay on a nice short path to get somewhere. So conceptually, does that make sense for everybody? Yeah. So we have to decide, well, then what set of maneuvers am I going to use to do that? And that's what we're going to be playing with as we work our way through the other two, because you have to have all the sets available to you to play the game. But right now, you know about moving people outgrid. We talked about the outgrid maneuvers being the domain of leadership. And this is where we're going to pick up today, so I can tell you a little bit more about these. But you kind of know that if I can get you to be more intentional and then more engaged, look what we're doing, going through the engagement rings. If I can get you to move from awareness into making some sort of an intention and then getting into some kind of action, I did just move you outgrid. And so there's going to be some of these things that are the natural side effects of the use of outgrid maneuvers. So we'll talk about those, but you got to know the other two as well, the upgrid maneuvers and the ingrid maneuvers as we work our way around this. Now, again, just as a reminder, if you're doing your job of keeping yourself in the green circle, you're only going to be using these maneuvers in their gentlest form, because you don't need them to be any more, I want to say, powerful, I guess, or you don't need them to be, you don't need to overdo it, is what I'm actually trying to say. So we just want to use the right amount of the maneuver at the right time in order to create just the right amount of movement and ultimately get you where we really want you to be. All right. So, yeah. Now, going back to that chart of our maneuvers, let's get into a little bit more of the outgrid maneuvers. Outgrid maneuvers are the domain of leadership, or the leader within you. When you are in that role as a leader, these are the kinds of things that you do, and these are the things that I could encourage someone to do if I wanted them to step even more strongly into the leadership role. So the first thing is that leaders are comfortable with a certain amount of risk. And they are comfortable enough with a certain amount of risk that they don't mind increasing it a little bit too. You know, they're going after personal best. They want to break the record. They want to do it faster. They want to make a little bit more. They want to roll the dice a little bit. So leaders, by their nature, and the leadership role as its nature, is one that is helping people to see the risk, embrace the risk, and move forward in spite of the risk. And for the people who are becoming a little more complacent, that leader might even encourage you to step out of your comfort zone and to take on a higher level of risk, put yourself to the test. Okay, so you guys understand what I mean by increased risk?
Yes.
You can do it for yourself, you can do it for others. Yeah, Brian, go right ahead.
No, I said yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So that'll move you outgrid. Now, keep in mind that if we look at the ChangeGrid, and I know that I'm treating you guys very much like an advanced class. So if I go too far too fast, I don't think I will, but if I do, just say, all right, rewind. Where's that all coming from? What I want to just bring out is that every one of these coordinate pairs all over the ChangeGrid has its own its own way of demonstrating itself or revealing itself in terms of your physical postures, the tone of your voice, and the words you are actually choosing to use. And so there are these three pathways through which we are revealing what's going on with us in terms of our thought process and blah, blah, blah. So the physical pathway, and we can get deeper into this if you guys feel so inclined. There's a second page of that reference guide with the levels of tension that goes into some of these more, I'm going to say advanced, but some of them are pretty esoteric. Doesn't really matter. But there's a specific physiology. So if I said to you guys, I'd like you to adopt the physiology of someone who's at 9-9. Now, what do you know about 9-9? We know they're in power. We know they're along the heart line, so they feel very balanced in whatever's going on. We know that at 9-9, they are fully engaged on the very edge of execution. So what would your posture move into, or what would the posture associated with 9-9 look like?
Shoulders down through the back, chest up. And
That's right. That's right. They're proud. They have a forwardness to their posture. So yep, that's very much what's going on. Now, if I step outgrid by one more point, now I'm at 10-10. How would the physiology, the posture, we'll look at the other elements of physiology, but the posture of someone who's at 10-10 versus the person who's at 9-9?
The nose is going to be well over the past the feet.
Yeah,
Not
okay.
Forward of the feet.
Because they're ready. This is the ultimate test point, because beyond this point, things get ugly. This is where fights occur. So if I said, well, what about the physiology of someone who's at 11-11 or 12-12? Can you kind of feel that they would have taken on a fighting stance?
Mhm.
You know, they feel the threat is imminent, but rather than being frightened by the threat, they're ready to meet that threat. And so their physiology is going to look like that. Well, no matter where I go on the change grid, you can describe that person in physiological terms. So what's going on with their postures, their gestures, their facial expressions, and a little less obviously, their breathing rate, and even the attire, whatever clothing they're wearing is telling you something about their level of where they are on the grid. So would it surprise you at all to find out that business suits are the uniforms of, it's the equivalent to a military uniform. Back in the day, if you were somewhere out there in the world of business, you knew that the attire had to look a particular way. And you needed to be well put together. So forget the wrinkles, forget, you were put together out here. So even your attire can tell me something. Meanwhile, if I'm down in apathy, at coordinates 10-2, 11-1, I'm down here. What do you think my clothing looks like?
Sandals without socks.
Sandals without socks, or maybe just one sock, because who cares? I mean,
Sandals
who
with
really
socks
cares?
and anything.
Right. And so, but at the same time, the person who's very far up grid might also not look as well put together. But there's a whole different emotional state accompanying this, or a different set of situations that are
Are they going to be more arms crossed, like they're frightened? So are they going to
so
be hands
the
on face?
defensive, yep, arms crossed, the defensive posture. Because remember, we said the four ways that humans have of dealing with an imminent physical threat is they can either flee. So the person who's upgrid, first of all, would just like to get out of there. So if they could, they'd take their road out. Or if they're more outgrid around it, they would fight. So flee, fight. Downgrid, this is where freeze is. They stop moving. The further downgrid you go, the less actual physical movement a person displays. And in grid, they fade. They want to kind of disappear into the background. So ever so quietly, ever so gently become part of the wallpaper, blend with the, just disappear. And so those are really the four. Now, again, all four danger zones are really neighbors of one another. So you know that people can move pretty easily between those four survival tactics. But, depending on how they got there, they're going to favor the one that came with their arrival to the powerless pointer into the.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sorry, with amiable, I was thinking maybe they would dress sort of colorfully or soft and pretty, and more
Yeah.
trying to please people.
Right, exactly right. Keep in mind that the governing principle for the in-grid danger zone is that everything they're doing must be socially acceptable. And so they're going to dress a particular way because they feel like that's expected of them, or they don't want to look like they are outside of it. So lots of conformity here. So yeah, they can look very well put together about what's going on, but they're going to be very conservative in their apparel. Where you talked about color, I would say that Upgrid, when it comes to attire selection, is probably going to be more colorful, and they should be the danger zone, but even up here, I would imagine it's going to be more colorful by intention, where these individuals, I think, how do I put this so that I'm not being too stereotypical? This is people going to their kind of weekly meetings or whatever, yeah, they're going to look put together, but it's going to be conservative. So I'm seeing lots of navy blues and, plain whites, etc. Are you seeing someone? But you know what? I guess it goes too, because we live in a desert community, which for some reason encourages people to dress in tropical ways. It might be the palm trees, but I think that as colorful as those outfits are, if that individual who's very far in grid feels as though that is the way to dress in order to socially fit in, then they're going to do that. But I guess what I'm saying is that I don't think these people are particularly focused on expressing themselves for the sake of expressing themselves.
Well, where would you place the class clown?
Oh, the class clown is, okay, first of all, we know there's an insecurity going on there. That's where they're the clown. Are they trying to be the life of the party versus the troublemaker versus the
I just mean someone who's always smiling and happy and nothing bothers them, and oh, life is good, and it's just pretty and cute, and isn't this a cute little headband I put on?
Yeah, now I think what you're looking at is, instead of being in the danger zone, I think you're looking here at the expressive, amiable energy. So the expressive, amiable energy is still amiable. That's their primary energy, but they're trying to have a little bit of fun. They're trying to be a little bit more involved. And so they will be a little bit more lively, etc. The next stage above that would be the person who thinks they're being social, but they're just plain talking too much. They're drawing too much attention to themselves or whatever, because now they are an amiable expressive instead of an expressive amiable. So yeah, these are the ones that don't know that they've had enough to drink. Yeah, and then of course you get the people in the very far upgrade danger zone. They've got their own problem because they overdo it, and the overdoing it can sometimes put them into harm's way. One other thing I feel like I can draw to your attention, and I don't want this to, if it just doesn't fit, don't worry about it. But do you guys realize that as you move towards in-grid, and you stay at balanced coordinates, so you stay at 10, 10. So you can see I'm drawing 10, 10. What I'm really doing is redefining a new square. So if I'm here at 8, 8, there's a new square that's 8, 0, 8, 8, 8, 8, 0, and 0, 0. There's a full change grid inside of each one of those shrinkages, if you will. And so if I move all the way back, just look at the amiable quadrant. The amiable quadrant still has all 5 levels of tension in the right proportions. It's just not grand. If you go up here to the expressive lives in stress, power stress, and a little bit of power. They don't have any power, apathy, or apathy. If I go out grid, the drivers have a kind of like a little bit of power stress. Most of it is in power, and a little bit of power apathy. So they'll hurry things along, and they will delegate some things, but they don't have a stress response state. They don't have an apathy response state. And a lot of times when they bring us into work, they also don't have very well developed power stress or power apathy. So they don't really know when to let go, and they really don't know when to get to action. So we're often trying to fix that kind of thing, but they don't have that. If I'm in the analytical quadrant, the analytical quadrant has a little bit of power. It's got a big old chunk of power apathy, but most of it is down here in apathy. Right? And so only the amiable has all 5 levels of tension available to them in the right proportions. And look at this, if I start zooming even tighter and tighter and tighter in, it's still going to be there. Even if I just look at this amiable quadrant, there's still 5 levels of tension. Even if I go all the way into 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, and 1, 0, there's all 5 levels of tension packed into that one little spot. Anybody find that interesting or meaningful?
Very, very interesting.
The difference is that these individuals' worlds are smaller. What they think of a very Outgrid experience, relatively speaking, we wouldn't even put into the Outgrid quadrant. So, they think they're doing something daring, and they're doing something that we would find boring because we live our life in a bigger world where there's more diversity in the way these different levels of tension can express. There's more situations that are made available to us based on our perceptions of things. So, yep, there are people that live in a very shrunken, kind of contained world, and they can find bliss there.
That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah, sorry.
No, go right ahead. Share with us what
It's yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a couple of people we've known who
have just,
you know how much we all went out and about and had fun in the 80s and 90s.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, and there were always the couple of people who would say, usually a woman, "Oh, I think I'm going to be really naughty tonight.
Oh, yeah.
I'll take half a glass of wine. I'll take half a glass."
I might take a whole spritzer.
Yeah.
A whole spritzer.
But we run into people, and those people are higher on this grid than people that we've run into here.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
mean, it kind of, I could, Scott could talk to you about this for 2 hours, just this is really opening a lot for me.
yeah, because keep in mind, though, that these individuals that have the smaller world, their idea of stress, look how tiny that little stress wedge is. I mean, look how small that is. That's not even 50% of the territory of stress. You get above 6 for challenge, look at how much.
Oh,
It's amazing.
Yeah, and so these are that, they are wedges for a reason, and that's the reason. But I just kind of wanted you to kind of know, since we were talking about this very Ingrid kind of energy and different physiologies, these individuals are going to look differently, carry themselves differently than any of their neighbors. And if we can kind of just tune in to what we're seeing, we can very often identify where someone is on the change grid just by looking at them. Now, we don't know what's going on in their head, so I don't know the context, but whatever's going on in their head, I know where it's put them physiologically just by looking at them. People who have done studies in communications about how information is conveyed through these 3 pathways, so the physical pathway, the tonal pathway, and the verbal pathway, they'll tell you that 55% of all the information that we are gathering about another individual is coming to us through that physical pathway, what we can actually see them doing. And similarly, 55% of all the information that we are conveying to others is coming across based on what our body is doing, or what our body looks like. So again, postures, gestures, facial expressions, breathing rate's a little more difficult to detect, but nevertheless, it's also affected. And then sometimes you can just look at how put together or disheveled they are. And that'll also tell you what's going on with their level of productive tension.
Would that be considered like what you're describing there, the Ingrid, a reclusive kind of person?
I would say to you that reclusives are more likely to live a life by choice, downgrid, but live a life by default, ingrid. See, I don't think these people chose to be reclusive.
Got it.
You know what I mean? Where I know that I'm a reclusive by nature, if you're taking the personality test that talk about introvert versus extrovert, I consistently plotted someone who's prone to introversion. That doesn't mean I can't have a good time. It just means that I recharge my batteries in my alone time. So this is where I'm at. So I'm reclusive by choice. And I've even said to Linda, after getting back from the trip to Europe, I said, I'm kind of traveled out, you know,
Mm.
I don't really feel compelled to go anywhere. I like our house. I like our community. You know, I like what we do here. And I'm perfectly content to just stay here and do what's here, you know? So
Right.
I don't have that wanderlust anymore. Maybe it'll come back. I don't know. But right now I feel like I'm going through an increasingly reclusive phase.
Yeah, I was thinking about like tribes in Africa, and then as we traveled amongst and we were educated by Quakers,
Yep.
and they always have these unique uh, conceptions of the world and their connectedness to it, and they form these very communal kinds of ways of being in within themselves, but you have to be like invited into that circle, if you will.
Yeah.
Like they don't
Absolutely.
just let anyone in because they don't want to, be infected and that kind of thing.
Right. You can come to certain things as a member of the public, but if we're going to get serious about these kinds of things, then you got to pass muster.
Yeah.
There are going to be very, very strong barriers to, not barriers to introduction, but barriers to integration.
Acceptance.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
The
you know,
acceptance.
I wonder what the iPhone is doing to, whether it's kind of the chicken or the egg, right? I see a lot of people literally, even when they're walking, their heads are down. And a lot of them are looking at their iPads or iPhones rather, sorry.
Yep.
I wonder if it's chicken or the egg. Are they becoming more, is that becoming their world, or are they just adopting this odd posture it makes my neck hurt and my upper back hurt?
Yeah, I mean, well, one definitely led to the other. I'm sure it's their desire to be on their phone that ultimately made them adopt that more hunched over, head down, and now you're watching more shoulder curling, all these kinds of things. It's going to have an impact on our physiology as time goes on. What's the reason? Why should we evolve into being taller if the truth is we spend the vast majority of our time hunched over a device of some sort? So I think that's an issue. The other thing that's I think happening that's probably even more serious at a societal level is how do I describe it? In French, there's a word quidam. Quidam is a word that describes all the people that are out there during their day, out there in the general public, and we all see one another, but we don't know who one another are. And so they're not so much strangers, they're quidam. They are people who are just happen to be there. And so there's no involvement at all. It's just an acknowledgement that you're there. Not even that you exist, you're there. So I think that's the problem too, is that how we really regard one another, and that requires us to be able to see one another and see one another's eyes in particular. So if we can't have that kind of engagement, and it can happen from many feet apart, just being able to look at somebody gives you a certain sense of how safe you are and how safe they might be, and blah, blah, blah. What happens if society stops noticing other people?
You find yourself at Planet Fitness.
Is that right? Is that how it is? You're just kind of like there, but not there?
You have earbuds
surrounded by people that aren't there?
Yeah,
Yes.
earbuds, listening to the same narrow band of musical expression that you've been listening to for years.
Looking down, looking at your chin rather than
Yeah.
your eyes.
Yeah.
Right.
If they meet your eyes, they look away quickly.
Yeah.
Or
All right, so here comes a circle of brilliance question for you guys that aren't usually on the circle. Here's what we want to do with that. Well, is that situation as we view it today something that was built intentionally?
Yes.
Have we ended up here accidentally? Should we correct it? How would we correct it? I mean, this is what the circle is always wondering about. So X is happening. Is it something that just happened coincidentally? We fell into this whole situation, or was this constructed by somebody? Now, think about that for a second, because then the next level of the question we'd be throwing at the circle is, even if it started off accidentally or unintentionally, have others now seen it recognized it for what it is and decided to exploit it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
encouraging it, and why would that be all happening? How does that bode for the future? Should we do something about it, et cetera? So welcome to the circle.
Yeah. Yes, with the exclamation point.
Yeah.
Because I think there's you see this in a lot of policies and different kinds of parameters that we create. There's unintended consequences because as humans, we are poor at strategizing future. And so this disconnect from one another, you know, tribally, when we see someone, Zulu we say sawubona. Sawubona means I see. So
Mhm,
you literally say, hey, I'm greeting your humanity.
mhm.
And that's a tribal thing to just acknowledge someone else on the planet.
Yeah.
You know, we're disconnected from that. You'll hear people say, yeah, I have a gazillion friends on Facebook, but they can't find a job.
Right.
Yeah.
That this doesn't make sense.
Right. And then, and you know that they're lying on Facebook. Not, and, you know,
Right.
oh, my life is wonderful. I'm doing all these fantastic things and you should all feel like peons next to me. I'm great.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
It's
all
not
very
a connection
contrived,
thing.
very,
Yeah.
so yeah. So it's also encouraging people to, how about, well, just package themselves in their best possible light. We'll say that would be the good intention, but the bad intention is they're trying to manipulate you.
Yes.
Right,
They're
right.
showing
And
you
I
very
think
small-
there's
I mean,
more
what's-
and more of that as we move forward, these unintended consequences that come with advanced technology. And to your point about the exploitation of that. So, you know, the people who understand what it can do, then they're utilizing it towards their benefit.
They
Even like
absolutely
what
are.
Anja and Tom were talking about earlier, about like sales. You think about, I see this a lot in digital products, and I'll
Mhm.
say limited. And how is a digital product limited?
Yeah,
You know,
right.
so they're limiting,
File somewhere.
right? So it's like this fire, you have to get it straight away. This kind of nonsense. I'm like,
Yeah,
this is
this,
ridiculous.
right, non-fungible, whatever they are.
Right. And
That's crazy.
fear. It's all fear mongering too.
It is. It depends
Fear.
what, well, let's go back to what the real intention is. So, so let's characterize what's happening with people looking at their devices. When I can get someone conditioned to always look at their device, I now have an absolutely captive audience.
Hmm.
If I can find a way to get my messages in front of them frequently enough and powerfully enough, I'm going to win. And so when I think about every time you use one of these devices, you are educating that device about who you are. And it in turn is educating the cloud, if you will. And then the cloud is in turn selling that data to advertisers so they can put it in front of you. So long story short, the bottom line is money. And so someone is trying to capture money out of your pocket. So why don't we want you interacting in a verbal way with the people that you meet every day? Because
Yeah.
that takes time away
Distraction from
from
their
you
message.
being right. Suddenly people become the distraction instead of the device being the distraction.
Exactly.
There was
Yeah.
a documentary a few years ago on Netflix, speaking of distractions,
Mhm.
which was oddly, it was odd that they were able to get it out, but it tracked the development of the smartphone. Of course, it came from Apple, and they had a lot of footage from the mid 1980s, the engineering team designing the iPhone, mid 1980s. And they had a group of them and they were talking to them, and the group was smiling and they were so happy because they said, once what we're designing into this device will make people never be able to take their eyes off it, and they'll never be able to set it down.
Right.
And that's the goal of what we're designing.
That's right. That's right.
Mhm.
Now, Brian, we're going to throw this to you because what neurotransmitters are in play when we are interacting with our device? So why do we TikTok? Why do we Instagram? Why do we go and look at things? What's happening in our brain, and why is that good or bad?
They're designing it. Literally, a lot of these tech companies hire, they call themselves persuasion engineers, but they're really behavioral scientists, and they're building off of what dopamine does and its precursor. So in other words, the dopamine prediction error reward says that if I just anticipate something, I can emit an equal amount or comparable amount of dopamine as if I'm actually engaged in it.
Mhm.
So the manipulation of FOMO and those kinds of things is dopamine.
Yep.
And it just want more and more and more dopamine. That's all dopamine cares about. It doesn't care if it's
More
value driven or
dopamine.
not.
Mhm. And
And
so,
what is- I'm sorry, Brian, you said persuasion engineers are really so
They're behavioral scientists like
Ah.
BJ Fogg out of Stanford, and these tech companies depend on him and his he has a what he called a behavioral grid, and it shows you how certain clicks and certain elements of behavior are actually formed together, and this is what these algorithms are based off of.
see.
And so it undervalues the human algorithms and puts the algorithms in the hands of the technology. And so it kind of usurps attention. And that's why I always say, for me, attention is one of our greatest capital assets. So if we pay
absolutely.
attention to attention,
Mhm.
you're at least, setting yourself up to play the game well and
Yeah.
on your own accord, as opposed to being manipulated.
Yes, we
Yeah.
see
Well,
that.
oh, go ahead, Edie, and TIC.
Yeah, I just want to add this, that on a brain scan, a hit of dopamine that kids are getting, and the brain scan of a hit of cocaine or heroin are very, very similar. And my
Mhm.
last TEDx talk is AI and digital dopamine making us dumb. It'll be posted any day, so it addresses all of this. And
Oh, let us
yeah,
know when it's up, and I'll broadcast it to everybody.
okay, yeah, but yeah, it's very scary to me because it's very similar. So when parents are giving the cell phone to their toddler at a young age, they're basically encouraging a drug addiction. They are.
They are. The drug happens
Yeah.
to dopamine.
We've known this for years about
Yeah.
smartphones though,
Yes.
and digital. We've known this for, I
Yep.
don't know, 10, 15, 20 years more.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but the money is what
Mhm.
drives things.
And
Yeah.
Well, we,
and dropping out, man. Just
Yep.
man, I don't need to talk to anybody. I can
Right.
I'm
I can take care of
I'm
everything I
entertained.
need without letting this device go down.
God help me. That's why I
Yeah.
leave it at home.
Right, we don't need to go shopping anymore. We can just do it all on our phone. Now, going back to Brian's one point, and then anyone else wants to chime in. Brian was talking about the attention is one of our greatest resources, our greatest assets. It's the one we really need to be able to be most protective of and vigilant around. That's the whole point of moving into the inside of the green circle. This is where you become the commander of your attention. Everyone else elsewhere is trying to pull your attention one way or another, or demand your attention. So I think that success in life is really not so much about becoming a better tension manager, or scratch that, it's about becoming a better time manager. It's about becoming a better attention manager.
Yes.
And so
Yep.
who cares if you've got your day really mapped out and you stick to it, if it's filled with things that aren't a good use of your attention.
Right, right. And for me, one of the things I always talk about from a attention management perspective, which is what it does tell us
Yeah.
about, is it's really about managing your nervous system. Like
Yeah.
what's going on with you physically, what's going on with you mentally, what's going on with you emotionally in any given moment. And for most people, they're just unaware. And when you're unaware of it, then that means someone can usurp it and actually
That's
take
right.
that away.
That's
And I
right.
heard that Guru said before, one of the things that we absolutely have the right to be stingy with is our attention, yet
Yep.
we give it away so freely
Yep.
and unconsciously.
Yes, 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 yes. That's the whole point of this program. Get in that green circle. Stay in the damn green circle. So, yeah. T, did you want to throw something in? I saw you're unmuted.
No, no, I don't have anything to add.
All righty. Okay. Well, you chime it anytime you want.
Fine,
So
I will.
now I want to draw some of your guys' attention, because we're going to talk about where does the device utilization move you on the change grid. Don't think it's always one place. That's the fun about the circle. We go like, nah, nothing's ever that simple. But let's say that you are looking at somebody who physiologically has draped themselves onto the furniture Obviously, the environment has not been tidied up in many, many, many a day. There's all kinds of empty food wrappers scattered hither and yon. So all it is, and this person is sitting there looking at their TV set or their monitor, and they've got a controller in their hand, virtual reality goggles on, and a big ear, set where they're talking to other people on there. Physiologically, we're probably going to say, well, they're downgrid. They're down in apathy or power apathy. Their exposure to the technology has moved them down to a place where they're lazy and they're not participating and they're not social, etc. But what if I said to you, nothing could be further from the truth as far as that particular activity is concerned? So when these people are playing the game, where are they on the change grid?
Up.
They're up. Why do we know that they're up?
They're up because they're trying to be busy so they don't have to look at anything else. They're overwhelmed with everything else.
Yep. And so this is a great distraction for them. But as they're in the act of doing whatever the game is asking them to do, where does that set of actions put them on the change grid? Think about this. Good game design has to keep you in a certain area on the change grid, or you're going to abandon the game.
I
So
think
it has to keep you up.
Difficulty.
It has to, there has to be enough challenge
Yeah.
to be there. If in the absence of challenge, they're going to go like, this is boring, it's too easy or whatever. So, and I get it, games always start off, well, they start off still feeling challenging, but you very quickly develop basic abilities, which makes those initial challenges far, far, far lower, blah, because you're developing your skills. So as you start to play with the game more and more, you're going to be moved progressively outgrid, but the game has to keep giving you upgrid challenges, or you're going to master the game, finish the game, and discard the game. Right? So if you are in one of these first-person shooter kinds of games, whether you're working alone or with a team of friends that are online at the same time, you have a mission. When you finish that mission, they don't say, good for you, you're done. What do?
They give you
Next
another
level.
mission.
They give you a next level mission, and there you are, attacking. So it's constantly making you reevaluate what your level of true ability is, because ability is relative. You don't know the full scope of the game. You don't know what the full range of abilities are that'll be required or that you'll develop over time. But nevertheless, relatively speaking, you feel like your ability is always increasing and you can meet that challenge. Right here on the change grid is where not only do we have dopamine being released, we also have endorphins and maybe even
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline could be released when you're up here. So while physiologically, other than their hands probably, the other fingers are flying, but the rest of them, they're draped in a lazy environment. We might think they're downgrid, but their brain is upgrid. So why do you think game manufacturers love people becoming these downgrid, power apathy and apathy humans, if you will? Why? Why do they want their population to be down here?
So they can sell more.
So I can sell you more stuff. I don't play those kinds of games. So I don't even know what version of Halo they're up to or whatever that, the most popular games are these days. Wasn't Grand Theft Auto, isn't that up to like the 12th or whatever? Who knows? They constantly want to reintroduce new games. The other thing I think is particularly intriguing about the video game industry is how little the general public actually knows about how those businesses operate and how successful they are. So when someone produces a successful video game, how do you think that compares to a successful Hollywood release?
Oh, a successful game earns 10 times.
10 times, dozens of times more than that. These are multi-billion-dollar companies who are very quiet. They don't draw a lot of attention to themselves. They do want to market their game, but you don't really see or hear very much about what's going on in the world of digital entertainment, right? So what does that tell you? What are they paying attention to? The general public or the public that they target?
They're zeroing in on what's under.
That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. And as a result, filthy, filthy, filthy rich. And by the way, and some of them very, very young. So this
Oh,
is
yeah.
great success can be done. But why does this person do it? The person who is Upgrade playing the game, the act of playing the game, it's because they're going to get those rewards neurochemically.
Mhm.
That's what they're all for. Now, where is the game manufacturer? Where are they on the ChangeGrid?
They're in power by.
They're in power.
They're Outgrid.
Yeah.
Yeah, Outgrid.
Well,
You're on the
it's gonna be
dark one.
right there, 10,
Yeah.
10. Be the best leader they can be. And again, if they were getting into all kinds of fighting and bickering and lawsuits and all that among different game manufacturers, we'd hear a lot more Outgrid stuff. But that's the kind of stuff that makes it into the news. So I can't think of the last time I heard a story about a game manufacturer, a game, whatever you actually call them, publisher. It seems to be a very quiet, under the radar, massive industry.
Interesting.
You know,
Yeah.
I wasn't a client, but part of my doctorate work was working with a company in New Jersey that their whole thing was coming up with games for casinos.
Yeah.
And they studied it, and they knew that if it had a certain bell and it had a certain ring and it was noisy, it actually hyped up people's tension or
Right, yeah.
excitement.
Yeah.
And it was rather fun to kind of hear them and how they studied it. And then it was interesting that a lot of the kids that are coming out of high school, when you talk to them, not a lot, but some, they want to do videos.
Mhm.
And they do a lot on YouTubes to show people how they're doing, and they get a lot of likes.
Yep.
So it's very interesting, I think, phenomenon when it comes to how people think of some of their careers.
Very good observation, because you're still describing someone who is know what they're doing is challenging, but they've developed the skill set. So anybody can produce a video, but producing a video that's actually watch worthy, that's a very different kind of a thing. The energy you're describing, like for the casino, that's very much the expressive driver energy, maybe even the expressive driver. So driver is prominent. They're trying to make something happen, get you to feed those machines. But how do they get you to be as involved as possible? It's all about lights and sound and speed and things moving. If anything, the introduction of a button-driven slot machine was all about one thing: increasing the speed of play. Because pulling that handle, although it kept you physically involved, took seconds. And when you watch people who are sitting at a machine for hours, those seconds that are saved with each one of those pulls translate into that many more bets you've made.
Good God.
Yeah, so it's all a manipulation. So yeah, the game company wants to be out here. I'm putting them as an amiable, driven driver. They know what they're trying to do. They want to do it very, very well, but they know they got to keep their customers satisfied. They got to keep these people engaged in whatever their gameplay happens to be. Now, who are they targeting? They're not going to target the population who lives upgrid. Why? Tell me about the attention span of someone who lives upgrid.
Yeah, they
Oh,
need
so-
something challenging.
Yeah, now they might buy the game, but are they going to stick to the game? I mean, these are the people who are willing to try anything.
Mhm.
We look at the social activities that are happening up here. An amiable expressive, a slightly driven expressive. They're out there to have fun, a good time. So they can easily be talked into buying the game, but they probably didn't play it very much. They abandon it, and they're not going to buy another game, not of yours or not of somebody else's, because they don't want to miss out. But they don't have the time to do everything and do it well. So if you're a games manufacturer, you don't really want to try to target this audience. They're not going to stick with you. Are you going to target other driver types? And I will say to you that there is a certain segment of the game players that live here. So who are they versus the people that are out there playing games with their friends?
Probably the testers, maybe.
Could be the testers, we need those, but a bigger population that's more valuable to my overall brand,
Oh, a competitor.
The
competitor.
competitors.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep. And it's amazing how much money those competitors can make. When
Yeah.
you are ranked in the top 20 players of a particular game, can you imagine why this manufacturer wanted to create an opportunity to bring you all together? Because think of the publicity that is, think of the brand management that is. They could even entice hundreds to come and watch you by saying they're going to be watching the new release of the game. That's what they're going to be playing, you know, or when they get to the finals, blah, blah, blah. So this is a great opportunity for them to not only increase their loyalty, but to bring more players to their particular game. And yeah, they're going to pay out big prize money because you got to believe they know how valuable those top 20, those top 100, whatever. I don't know how big they start off with as they whittle down the competitive field, but you know, it's a big, big deal. But God, know this for sure. The game manufacturer is Outgrid. The game players are, when they're playing the game, are slightly upgrid and outgrid right here. And they're ultimately the most easiest audience to convert to your army of game players are the people that are further downgrid.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
reminds me that the idea of the question that you asked earlier, should we be doing something about this
Yeah.
attention hijacking? And my answer would be yes. I'm thinking of a book, a classic, I think it was written in 1941, the Game of Life and How to Play It.
Oh,
I think the attention management offers a tool kit and a resource for you to answer that, because I think a lot of people are looking for that from self-help and that kind of thing, but it's often follow my steps and do, you know, 1, 2, 3, and you're there because I've done it. And we know that's not true.
yeah. Yeah, well, I think another element that's going on for us, what's going to make it challenge to fix it is that we have to become even better at commanding their attention on their devices. We're not going to get to them through another channel. The channel has been established. So how can we get these messages in front of people who are already being inundated by messages from those who have addicted them?
I think things like what we're doing is creating communities, because I even look at the research on those MOOCs, the massive open online courses.
Yep.
The completion rate is like 3 to 4%. And
Yeah,
when you
it's
look at the
minuscule.
research as to why, well, the average person is signed up for 10.
Yeah.
How are you going to complete 10 courses? So
Right.
it's the shiny object. Oh, I seen something that piqued my interest, but they weren't outgrid in terms of actually following through to execute on it.
In the world of online training, and our own numbers support this, it is easy to get people started, but to get them to finish is a very different thing. In fact, if you look at the total population, and we can't hide this, you can just go look at our YouTube channel. Again, we're not marketing it yet because we're still undecided about what we really want to do. But nevertheless, the people who have watched our training videos, you can see that if the people who watch episode 1 equal 100%, by the time you get to watching the 4th and final lesson, we're down to under 25%. And you can watch it cut in half at each little level, or you know, drop down by the same increment at each little movement. So something's going on. Now, yeah, are there things we can do to keep people more engaged? Absolutely, but more engaged might only bring you an extra percentage or two of people completing the program. So, so again, what's going to make this very difficult for anyone to actually influence is that we have to use the channel. Remember the world of coaching, you must meet people where they are. And where they are is looking at their devices most of the time, most of the day. So we got to find them on the device. We got to meet them on the device. How do we do that?
Oh, boy.
Exactly.
Well, and honestly, that's why we wanted to put the Oracle of the Self up on YouTube. Because we figured, well, while we need to figure out how to get people to know we exist on the platform is its own challenge, we need to make sure that what we want people to be exposed to and learn from is very well finished and very well executed as far as the online arrangement of it, because then you can get enough people exploring it, playing with it, etc., that they start to suggest it to others, and then the viral element has a chance. So it's got to be right before it gets marketed. And that's where we're at right now, is still making it right. The fact that I'm a perfectionist is not helpful, just so you know.
Hey, T.
Yeah.
If all of you want to have an interesting read, if the articles are still available, find out how Planet Fitness gym system was created, what the business model was.
Oh, all right.
The
Interesting.
business model was based on a large number of people who want to join a gym, who want to get healthy, they want to work out, and an almost as large number who will go to the gym once or twice and never again.
But
Right.
the price is not
But
prohibitive.
yeah,
Right. So
And
they'll
it's
continue to
still
pay it
yeah,
because
Yes.
they continue to hold the intention of going back.
yes,
Mm.
because Planet Fitness came out with their $10 per month membership when the average gym membership in the United States was $35 a month.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Now, regular gyms are 45, 50 bucks a month, and Planet Fitness is $10.
Yep.
When you sign up, you are number 10,152 customer for that local gym, and only 300 come during the week.
Right.
Every-
Right. So you are there at that gym, and you're kind of going like, well, there's not very many people here for the size of the membership, but that's the way the model works. That's the way the
Yeah,
model.
but laziness plays in too, because they place it at they price it at a spot where people, they're like, it's not really worth my time to take this off the credit card.
Particularly, usually in situations like Planet Fitness, I don't know about this personally, but they also want to make it complicated for you to cancel.
Right.
You have to do it by a
Actually-
registered letter, or you have to do it physically at the gym. That gives them the opportunity to resell you on the whole thing.
Actually,
So,
we left Planet Fitness and it took 2 minutes. But what they do is the $10 is at such a low point that somebody says, boy, I'm paying my gym membership. I haven't been there in a year and a half. I'll start next week. It's only 10 bucks. I'll pay."
exactly. No, that's exactly it.
And
Exactly.
then what Planet Fitness does is they place the free weights and the weight racks out of view from the front window. So when you walk by and you look in, you don't see anybody being strenuously worked.
Right.
And put in the front view window, the sitting down exercise machines.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And they were one of the first gyms to pipe in this very quiet music from the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
They encourage you not to make friends. They don't do it openly, but their
Yeah.
plan was to create an atmosphere where you don't really make buddies at the gym.
Right. 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 And
So
don't be too serious, because the lunk alarm will go off.
Yeah, they had to do away with that. It was scaring old people
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
And young.
and young people. But it was a brilliant model, and Planet Fitness opened up, yes,
Insidiously brilliant.
yeah, and
Right.
right. So you go into a Planet Fitness, there's only 20 people there. It's a huge building. Don't worry, there are 1,000 who are, for those 20 who are paying every month.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow.
Well, there you go. Well, so again, yet again,
Alright.
life is on the ChangeGrid. We just have to stop for a moment and figure out where is that particular aspect of life fitting, and what's really going on in the whole thing. So we didn't really talk about our outgrid maneuvers or our upgrid or our ingrid. So we still have to go and finish these up so you guys have a whole picture. But the most important thing to me, you guys know, I obey only one rule. That rule is pay attention to tension. If you guys are having a nice conversation, you're interested in exploring a certain thing, I'm going where you're going. And whether or not we get around to the content I'd mapped out this week, next week, it doesn't really matter. This is what's most important. So yeah. All right.
May I ask real quick before you go? The upgrade is coaching. I know downgrade, you said trainer, upgrade leadership. Is upgrade
Oh yeah,
coaching?
yeah. We just say that the upgrade maneuvers are the domain of managers.
Oh man.
Manager keeps you upgrade. Change the task, boost accountability, increase standards. These are the general tasks associated with management. And so, for example, if you end up being downgraded, you had a kid that's downgraded, I'll tell you the reason why they're downgraded is because they've been poorly managed. So manage them better. If they're too far upgrade, they've been poorly trained or they need to be trained in whatever that is. Outgrid maneuvers are about increasing someone's inner sense of leadership. So outgrid maneuvers are the domain of leaders and in-grid maneuvers are the domain of counselors.
Counselors.
Bring, yeah, counselors, therapists, whatever. Keep it unlicensed is a little bit better. So, but these are people that are providing some kind of counseling or therapeutic kind of thing. But it's also,
is the domain of,
what's that?
downgrid is the domain of what?
Downgrid are trainers.
Trainers.
Oh,
These are the
thank you.
trainers. Upgrid are the managers. Outgrid are the leaders. And in-grid are the counselors.
thank you.
Now, you also, you know, when you guys are doing any kind of job, so if you put yourself back into a business setting, if you had a management title or a leadership title, you were doing all of these things, make no mistake about it. It's situational. Sometimes you had to be a trainer and sometimes you needed to manage people and sometimes you wanted to lead them. Nobody has the luxury of having a job that allows them to focus on only one of these four. So we have to put on these four different hats interchangeably. And by the way, we probably have 400 more in the closet. It's not just like, you know, we're one person showing up with one role and one. No, we got a whole bunch of stuff to do, which means we got to be a whole bunch of different people depending on the situation we find ourselves in. So you guys get that? So you wear dozens of different hats every single day. But when it comes to the things that we can do inside of a regular business setting or a conversational setting, it's pretty much limited to these four in the training that we do. And then one more, that's the PowerPoint maneuvers. These are things you only or primarily do for yourself, but we'll talk about those as well.
Excellent.
All righty. All right. So thanks, everybody. We shall talk again. So
Adios.
bye for now. Have a
As
great-
always, this was awesome.
I'm
Thanks.
glad you enjoyed it. Everyone stay in the green circle. Bye.
Absolutely.
green.
Jerry.
I'm not doing what you tell me to do.
Yeah.
I do what I want.
There you go.
Attention, attention.
Oh no. Bye.
Bye.